In our second chapter of Social 20, we are going to look at the shaping of nationalism. And the key question in this chapter is to what extent should internal and external factors shape nationalism? And while we will take a look at some other periods, the main period that we're looking at for this is the French Revolution. So today, what we're going to look at is how class influenced pre-revolutionary France, and we want to know this so we can understand why calling the Estates General triggered the French Revolution. So France, prior to the Revolution, which was the end of the 18th century, was a highly stratified society. You had numbers will vary a little bit, but generally it's reported that between 96 and 97% of the population was who would be considered the common classes, and 3 or 4% of it were the ruling classes, which were the royalty and the clergy and the nobility. We'll talk about taxes later, but an important thing to note right now when we say that is that most common people had at least 50% of their wealth taxed. The clergy maybe had 2% of their wealth taxed. The royalty and the nobility were exempt from taxation. In fact, that was one of their royal privileges. So, pre revolutionary France worked on the kind of backwards principle that the more well off you were, the less tax you should pay. That's a perk of being nobility in this time and place. So, what we're actually going to look at first is we're going to look at a political cartoon. What do we see in this cartoon from the top? And yes, I am showing it to you in segments. Well, we can see that we have a priest, part of the clergy, the guy with the crowny hat, and it looks like we either have a judge or a noble. They are riding along on something. Another judge or a noble. What are they riding on? The backs of the common people. And you can see that that person is quite enslaved in this particular cartoon. This is contemporary from France at the time. It was created in 1789, the very year that the French Revolution began. It shows common people chained, blindfolded, naked, carrying an aristocrat, a bishop, and a judge. So think about what type of a statement this cartoonist is making about the French society at the time, which was known as the Ancien Regime. We have a massive population of people who are not super well off, and yet they are the ones who are being taxed. How might that influence things in the future? And how might that influence the development of nationalism within the French nation, continuing on even today?